This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you an answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. It can be like trying to learn a new language. So I make myself available to answer all of your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated. There is no such thing as a dumb question. You can ask me anything that you like. What's up, Dan? Good to see you again, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. It can be like trying to learn a new language because there's all these different three-letter agencies. Like maybe you don't know what the words stand for, maybe you don't know what they do. What's the difference between the FTC and the FEC and the FDA and the EPA? And sometimes we just talk about people in politics just by their last name. And so if you don't know who Hegseth or Patel or Bongino or Noam are, it can be really difficult to keep up with what is going on in the government. And, we also just throw around a bunch of terms sometimes like reconciliation or filibuster or continuing resolution. And if you don't know what those words mean, it can be really difficult to keep track of what's going on in the government. So, this is the place where you can ask all those questions and you don't have to worry about getting judged or ridiculed. I don't believe in making fun of people for trying to learn new things. So, if you don't know things about politics and you want to know things about politics, this is the place where you can ask them. It is a judgment free zone. It was later in my life than I would care to admit that I discovered that there was a difference between federal senators and state senators and federal house members and state house members. We are all on our own timeline for learning this stuff. The doomsayer says the more diverse we become, the more like Yugoslavia we will be. I don't know what that means, doomsayer. Are you saying that that's like a bad thing? Alexander, how do you feel that Israel owns our politicians? Israel does not own our politicians. They have a lot of influence over our politicians because there's a lot of money behind AIPAC, but they do not control our politicians. Doomsayer says, look up Yugoslavia. No, thank you. Because what you're saying sounds shitty. I'm being honest, Doomsayer. It sounds like you're trying to say that being diverse is bad. Patty Ron says, how much more corrupt can the Supreme Court become? I am disgusted. It can get more corrupt. Like, I'm assuming that Thomas and Alito will retire at some point during the Trump administration, and they'll put a couple of even worse people in there who are young. Larry McBarry says, can I come up? I don't usually have people come up on the live. Change my mind though. If you stick around, if you ask a couple of questions in good faith in the chat, then maybe I'll bring you up. Doomsayer says, how can you comment on politics and not know recent history? Well, I don't know anything about Yugoslavia, so I'm talking about American politics, Doomsayer. And again, it seems like what you're saying is that diversity is bad, in which case you can F the hell out. Let's see here. Larry McBarry says, how bad can Israel get? I don't know what you mean by that. Is it getting bad? Welcome to the party, everybody. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and you can ask me anything that you like about politics. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. So, this is the place where you can ask all of your questions about politics, and I'm not going to make fun of you for not knowing things, and I don't care if you have different political opinions than me. This is not one of those shows where I call people up and we just fight and we debate and we try to own each other, and then, we try to figure out which one of us wins at the end. I am not here to argue. I'm not here to fight. I am not here to debate. Fat Trucker says, why is diversity of thought so dangerous yet? Any other diversity is okay. Fat Trucker, I take your meaning, but I do think that there is an issue with misinformation and propaganda. And so if curbing misinformation means that we are curbing diversity of thought, then I don't know. I think that you know, it's difficult because on the one hand you want to be an absolutist and believe that ideas can survive in the marketplace, but on the other hand, Republicans have been defunding education for such a long time that they have made larger portions of this population more susceptible to conspiracy theories. And so, yeah. I'm not really sure what the solution is to that problem. I just know that it's not as cut and dry as every idea deserves to be broadcast to every human being on the planet exactly the same as every other idea. Jordan McCluskey says, so glad about the rulings today. Jordan, ask a question or I'll boot you. Scorpio Red says, who's more bangable? That's not a question about politics. Alexander says, would you consider running for any political position? I know it doesn't really fit into my life, unfortunately. Doomsayer says, you'll love the coming sectarian politics. I mean, are you going to do them, Doomsayer? Also, ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Fat Trucker says, you claim majority is susceptible to conspiracy theories. Like what? Oh, I don't know, like there was no moon landing or flat earth or migrant caravans or they're eating the dogs in whatever, in whatever place they were supposed to be eating the dogs in, that FEMA wasn't helping people during the Biden administration, conspiracy theories like that. Larry McBarry says, who'd you like better, Al Julian or Assad? I don't like Assad. I don't know who Al Julian is. Slick Trick says, thoughts on U.S. dollar without Trump? Probably will go up. Slick Trick says, petrodollar is in trouble due to debt to China. China will overtake once Pearl Road is complete. Ask a question, Slick, or I will boot you. And yeah, I do think that the dollar will go up after Trump. Fat Trucker says, do you believe that the majority believes there is no moon landing or the earth is flat? Fat Trucker, no. I was just giving you examples of theories. And I did not say everybody believes conspiracy theories. What I said was that more people believe in conspiracy theories because the Republican Party has been defunding education for a long time. Larry McBarry, I still don't know who that is. Conga Skillywag says, do you want tampons in men's bathroom? I don't understand what the problem would be for having tampons in men's bathroom. Maybe one of those men is trans and still has periods. So what would be the fucking issue with that? All right, Tyro Pillar, good to see you again over on YouTube. What happened in the Mueller report? The Mueller report showed that there was collusion between Russia and Trump during the 2016 election, but that there was not enough evidence to convict on that crime. But he did say that there was more than enough evidence to convict on obstruction of justice because the Trump campaign destroyed evidence that they were told to keep that probably would have proved that there was collusion, more collusion with Russia than Mueller was able to report without it. All right. Fat Trucker says, specifically, you said the majority was susceptible. I just tested your logic. Okay, Fat Trucker. Congratulations, you owned a lib today, man. You can leave whenever you like. Alexander says, do you believe in Iran? Iran already has a nuclear weapon hidden, or at least other nuclear research areas? They most likely have other nuclear research areas. I believe that if they had a nuclear weapon already, that we would hear about it, or that we would have heard about it. All right, welcome everybody. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I'm here to answer all of your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated. I am not one of those guys that calls people up and debates them. I'm not here to roast you or ridicule you. I am just here to answer your questions in good faith. Admittedly, sometimes I get a little spicy if people are spicy with me in the comments, but I'm working on that, and I'm trying to just answer as sincerely to all of the questions that I get as possible. All right, let's see here. So female your life has tampons in your bathroom. Alexander just said the word nuclear. Okay. Let's see here. Down on top says, you're not red-pilled, bro. That is accurate. Ray says, are you excited for the Superman movie? I am excited for the Superman movie. I love movies. But, we don't have a lot of comments, guys, so I am definitely going to entertain all of these non-political questions. Welcome, everybody. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it, so this is the place where you can ask all of your questions. I know there's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there, so this is the place where you can ask what's real and what's not real. What do we know for certain, and what are we still trying to figure out? I am not here to debate you. I'm not here to fight with you. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. Larry McBarry says, who do you like better, the Shah or the Ayatollah? Why are you trying to get me to pick between people, Larry McBarry? What are you trying to prove here, my man? Fat Trucker says, who would win a debate between Parker and Dean? I don't really care about, debating and who's like a better debater or not. Because debates are dumb. It's just two people who are not trying to learn anything from each other, trying to, they've each gone into a room beforehand and deconstructed the other's arguments and come up with their perfect response to it. So they're not actually listening to each other. Somebody asked Charlie Kirk the other day, like, would Jesus vote for Republicans? And so he had his bullshit answer ready, and because that was the thing that he wanted to prove, as opposed to being something that he actually believed. Eric 1989 says, and Dems not so much. I don't know what you mean by that. Do you prefer the Dem optics or the Republican optics, in the sense that Trump administration is in front of camera and Dems not so much? Eric, Dems are 100% in front of the camera right now. There are dozens of elected Democrats who are barnstorming the country, having town halls, or Republicans have canceled town halls. AOC and Bernie Sanders are on a breakneck no oligarchy tour across the country. They're all over the place, man. Gavin Newsom is out there starting fights with Trump every day. So yeah, I'm not really sure what you mean by that. What I have discovered, consuming political content for a while, is that there are a ton of narratives out there that are designed to make people think the Democratic Party is worse than it actually is. And that's one of the ones that's there, that they're all asleep at the wheel right now when there are dozens of Democrats who are out there doing the work. Luke Alexander, good to see you again, Sue. Can you explain the Treaty of Guadalupe? No, I cannot. Please stop asking that. Osacat says, when will we legislate Fox News? When we get Democrats in office. Eric, 1989, says, I'm saying that Biden administration was absent during his 4 years. No, they were doing the work. They passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which was revitalizing small towns, the largest investment in green energy in our nation's history, the first bipartisan infrastructure bill in over a decade, the first bipartisan gun control legislation in almost 2 decades. They were walking the picket line with the unions. They were empowering unions. They were breaking up monopolies. Just because they weren't out there every day giving press conferences does not mean that they weren't doing the work. Alexander says, after seeing how Iran was struck from within, would you consider not letting China own lots of land? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Let's see here. David Thomas says, California, Texas, Oregon were stolen from the Mexicans. Is that what you're saying? Let's see here. Larry McBarry says, what do you think about that dude from, I can't remember, Cenk, I think his name is, right? He's okay. I don't hate progressives, even if I don't agree with them 100% of the time. Even if I don't love the way that they communicate. I think that people that are popular and talk about politics is probably a net positive because it's getting people engaged. Let's see here. Show me your little hat. Your mom showed me her little hat. David Thomas says, tell the truth. I literally just did. Daniel Smith says, I believe that Democrats and Republicans are 2 different factions of the same party. Daniel Smith, that is inaccurate. That is a propaganda narrative that has been pushed by the billionaire class to convince people to not vote. And if you want me to give you more information on that, I will. Diamond Gang says, do you think Jack Smith will file another case on Trump? I don't know what legal ability he has to do that right now. I don't believe he actually works for the government anymore. Assuming that Democrats could retake control of the government and the Department of Justice at some point, then I think that whoever they get to be special counsel should 100% go after all of these people who have done all these crimes. Ed says, can we get rid of ICE? Yes, but we have to elect a whole bunch of Democrats in order to do that. Pan says, do you think it's possible to boot Trump out anytime soon? Not while Republicans are in office. Republicans are either in the bag for Trump or they're scared of him. They're fucking asleep at the wheel when their entire fucking job is to curb the excesses of authoritarian administrations like what he's doing to stop him from doing illegal and unconstitutional shit. And they're just fucking, they're either going along with it or they're just fucking hiding under their desks or some shit like that. Mike Johnson's never going to bring up an impeachment vote to the House floor, one that actually has any legs to it. Let's see here. Tyro Pillar says, are we cooked? No, we are not cooked. We are medium, but we are not well done. And we can be not cooked if people do the work. Budget Chicken says, what are your thoughts on the Gavin Newsom lawsuit versus Fox? I have not read into that yet, Budget Chicken. I apologize for that, but I'll do a little research onto it. I like some of the fight that Gavin Newsom has in him. I don't love all of his policies. I don't love all of his legislative history, but I'm glad that he's going hard against the right. Eric 1989 says, do you think the strike on Iran was unconstitutional? That's a little bit of a difficult question. Presidents have been abusing the war powers doctrine for a really long time, all the way back to the Reagan administration, and everybody's done it. And it's basically just like Congress doesn't want to vote on this thing, and they also don't want to vote that what you did was wrong. So it's just kind of like it's this gray area. I think it's much smarter to talk about why the strike was dumb as opposed to the fact that it was unconstitutional. Eric 1989 says, did Article 2 trump the War Powers Act? That's part of it. That's part of being commander in chief. Pan says, do you believe that with the way things are going, we're headed towards World War III? I don't think so. I think that we're going to continue to see global instability and conflicts between nations, but I don't think that's going to escalate into World War III. Diamond Gang says Jack Smith is with the FSS, correct? When Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act, didn't that create case? Diamond Gang, I'm actually not sure about that. I would need to do a little research into that, so sorry. Candy Contigo says, why Congress don't work on important issues? There's a bunch of reasons why Congress doesn't work on important issues. I mean, it's also important to be specific. Like, are you talking about this Congress right now or other congressional breakdowns in the past? Like during the Biden administration, during the first 2 years, Congress was passing a lot of really good stuff, a lot of very important stuff. They capped the cost of insulin and asthma inhalers. They passed the largest investment in green energy in our nation's history. But why isn't it happening during the Trump administration? That's easy. Like, they're just busy trying to steal money from all of us and give it to billionaires. Pan says, someone asked earlier, I don't know if you answered it, did they take away birthright citizenship? So the answer is no, Pan. The case that was before the Supreme Court was, can nationwide injunctions exist from lower courts? So when one person sues the Trump administration over the birthright citizenship question, and then they win that case in the lower courts, does that judge have the right to say that nobody in the country is allowed to revoke other people's birthright citizenship? And so they weren't arguing whether or not that Trump could undo birthright citizenship. They were just arguing whether a judge would be able to stop the entire country from doing that, or if individual states or individual people would then have to do their own lawsuits in order to keep birthright citizenship available, or the rights of birthright citizenship available to all of those people. And yeah, the fact that they allowed that to happen is absolutely psychotic. It's just making people work harder to keep the rights that we already have. Eric, 1989 says, as a conservative, I believe the injunctions should have stayed, just select judge at random. Yeah, I mean, I'm against forum shopping as well, Eric. I'm glad we can agree on that. Thank you for being here, Eric. Dan Blackwood says, we won't ever have World War like World War I or II. The World War itself are different now. Yeah, I think an argument could 100% be made for that. I'm open to being persuaded. Slick Trick says, is crypto good or bad for saving the dollar from collapse? I do not believe that crypto is going to save the dollar from collapse. Is it good or bad? Right now, I have not seen anything but negative use cases. I have only seen it being used as a vehicle for trafficking and corruption. It is a massive waste of electricity. I don't see the value to it whatsoever. Samuel T. Dover Sr. says, do you feel the Republican Party is being blackmailed into pledging absolute loyalty to Trump? I think some people in the Republican Party are being blackmailed. I think some of them are worried about physical threats of violence from his fan base. I think some of them are worried about primary challenge, but I think a lot of them are just down. I think a lot of them are just like, yeah, fucking authoritarianism, let's fucking go. Stealing money from the poor, giving it to the rich. We get to be entrenched in power forever. Don't have to worry about elections going forward. The truth no longer matters. Fucking hell, man. That sounds great. So yeah, that is one of a billion reasons why I don't think anybody should ever vote for Republicans. Also, as a conservative, I hate the Big Beautiful Bill part where there is no oversight on artificial intelligence for 10 years. Crazy. Eric, how do you feel about the part that is cutting taxes for the billionaire class, and in order to pay for that, they are cutting things like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and welfare? Diamond Gang says, at what point can Pam Bondi be disbarred? That I'm not 100% sure about, and it might be a state-by-state thing. Aaron Galdor says, what's your opinion on communism, socialism? So there is no country that is fully capitalist, communist, or socialist. Every country is some combination of all of those. And some countries have like a little bit of authoritarianism as well. What we have here in America is mostly capitalism, but we do have socialism in the sense that we all pay taxes and the government uses that taxes for things that help all of us, like fire departments and paved roads and public schools and the military. We also have communism. In every company that is employee-owned is at its core communism. Personally, I think that we have a little bit too much capitalism in this country, and we could use a little bit more socialism and communism. Like, we should be giving tax incentives for companies to be employee-owned, and we should be making public certain industries that are private right now. For example, healthcare. Healthcare does not work as a private industry. On Top says, what's your opinion on Israel? Israel's a fine country. I do not think that their government is doing a good job. I think that they are currently being led by a right-wing extremist named Benjamin Netanyahu, who is found guilty of committing war crimes against his neighboring countries. He has been trying to bait America into war with Iran for decades. He's a real piece of shit. And I think the citizens of Israel would be wise to vote him out of office so that he can go to jail. Luck Dragon says, question, I just woke up from a coma. What happened? Oh boy, there's a lot to catch up on, Luck Dragon. But stick around. Maybe you'll pick things up through osmosis. Tina Cake says, why did they automatically bring charges against Abrigo Garcia? On purpose. So Tina Cakes, I'm not 100% sure. I think that they are trying to save face. Like they have been for months now making up information about Abrego Garcia in order to justify the fact that they have been illegally renditioning people to torture prisons in countries that are being run by dictators and warlords. And they've been saying he's never coming back, he's a human trafficker, he's done this, he's done that, and there's no evidence of that. You know, there is only evidence that he is a law-abiding, legal resident who has literally done nothing fucking wrong. But, you know, they're going to see what they can get away with. They're going to try to muddy the water with a bunch of bullshit investigations and charges that will most likely get thrown out. They'll try to revoke his citizenship. They'll try to boot him that way. And then at the end of the day, they will still maintain that he was a human trafficker, and that's the reason why they got rid of him, when in actuality, they will get rid of him because they just don't want him here, because he's a brown person, and because that they've already gone to bat for the fact that this is a bad person. And that can happen to any of us. You know, I'm seeing articles every day about Trump supporters, people that voted for him, their friends get deported, and they're like, I thought they were only doing criminals. Their employees, their children, their parents are getting deported, and they're like, I don't understand. He said it was just going after the worst of the worst. It's citizens, it is legal residents, it is people with zero criminal history, it is mostly people who have done no major crimes. It's psychotic. All right, Rena, great to see you again. Thank you for being here. Ches says, are you a Zionist? So I don't think that word has any value, because depending on who you ask, it means different things. I do not think that what Israel has done to Palestine and Iran are okay. But I also believe that there are citizens living in Israel who just want to live their fucking lives, and that we should not forcibly remove them to other countries, even if their ancestors forcibly removed other people from where they're currently standing. Mr. Cobretti says, bring me up. I don't typically bring people up, but if you stick around, ask some questions, prove to me that you are here in good faith, maybe I will change my mind. Nuh-uh says, opinions on socialism. Tomo says, so you're a Zionist, winky face. That's not what a Zionist means to everybody, Tomo. Let's see here. Nuh-uh says, oh, excuse me. Opinions on socialism. Socialism is something that we have in America already, in the fact that we, excuse me, in the fact that we use our tax dollars for things that help everybody, like pave roads and the fire department and the military and public schools. And so I think we could probably use a little more socialism here in this country. Period says, did you vote for Trump? No, I did not. User a bunch of numbers says, how long have you been a liberal? You know, I really didn't follow politics all that closely until I was in my mid to late 20s. I would always consider myself somebody on the left political spectrum, but I really didn't know what I was talking about as much. I just was like, you know, I learned about climate change when I was in high school, and I was like, that seems bad, you know? And then someone was like, well, Republicans are saying it's not real, and Democrats are saying it is real. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm a Democrat then, you know? Nuh-uh says, that's not what socialism is, LOL. Yes, it is. DJ Richie Rich says, liberals for Trump. No, they're not. User a whole bunch of numbers says, it's ever so obvious. What is? Ches says, what do you think about Mamdani? I think he's great. I'm really excited for Mamdani. But I just want to read you guys a headline really quick, since somebody brought up Mamdani. This is something that I just saw on Reddit. A billionaire Trump backer is desperate to stop Zohran Mamdani. Billionaire Bill Ackman and his rich friends want anyone, to bring down Zohran Mamdani. Their pitch, take our money. It won't be much time and energy, and maybe you'll get famous enough to use the campaign as a stepping stone. My point is this, guys. We have this great groundswell of support for a democratic socialist, young, diverse mayor of New York City. And he's finally going to make the city affordable, and he's going to make the rich people pay their fair share. And there is a cabal of billionaires who are going to try to torpedo him. They're going to spread misinformation about him. They're going to use their vast money, power, and influence to stop his agenda from taking place. And then they're going to pay people to publish op-eds saying, "Look at how ineffective socialists are. Isn't this terrible? We need a better mayor. We need a centrist or a Republican mayor of New York again." Shit like that. So I just want to tell everybody that the fight is not over just because he won the primary. There's still the general election, and then there will still be him trying to actually run a city that has a lot of billionaire pieces of shit in it. Where Fox News is centered, by the way, in New York City. All right, Splazin says socialism never works. That's not true. The fucking post office works. The public schools work. The paved roads work. The fire department works. The military works. Those are all socialist. Let's see here. NSB says Mamdani should be naturalized. I don't know what you mean by that. But ask a question or you're going to get booted. No, Dodo, good to see you again. I saw that things are going to move away from nationwide injunctions to class actions. Thoughts? It is extremely dumb. It is extremely unproductive. So everybody's just going to have to do their own lawsuits when the government tries to stomp on our rights. So if California protects your rights, but Arkansas doesn't, then as you are traveling from one state to the other, you will suddenly no longer have the rights of a citizen if you were born here. So if I just drive through Kansas, I could be deported even though I was born in this fucking country, even though I've been a citizen my entire fucking life. It is so fucking stupid. And then I would have to do a class action lawsuit with other people in Arkansas just to get my rights back. It's fucking psychotic, man. Alrighty, let's see here. Drake J. Weitzer says thoughts on the market. Let's see here. A couple of headlines from the AP News. Gloomy Americans cut back on spending as inflation ticks higher. Deep inside the U.S. economy, more sticker prices start going up due to tariffs, and inventory is headed down. So yeah, those are my thoughts about the market. S.E. Morgan says capitalism needs to be controlled to work. I agree with that. Splazin says California is eroding rights. That does not seem accurate, Splazin. And also ask a question or you're going to get booted. Error Abraham, good to see you again. Who is visiting Arkansas? Voluntarily? No thanks. I have performed in red states many times in my life as a stand-up comedian, and I've had an awesome time there. I just really hope that I can continue performing there without fear of getting my fucking rights trampled on. The X-Man says, should Texas be higher or lower? Lower for the 99%, higher for the top 1%. Joseph McCraw, and for giant billionaire corporations. Joseph McCraw says, so if you put this socialist in office, what will you do for money when all the rich just leave? So rich people are allowed to leave. That is true. But when they do, they're leaving behind shit that they cannot take with them, like apartments and stuff like that. There is no threat to billionaires leaving. Like, fucking go, man. Get the fuck out of here. We don't want you here. You are making things shittier. You are making them more expensive. You are making them lamer. I moved to New York City in 2001. I left in 2022. And it was so much more expensive and so much less cool when I left than when I first got there. Because what you want is a city where people can go and afford to live, and they do cool shit, and they open cool restaurants, and they start interesting new businesses and shit like that. But instead, it was just fucking billionaires in their fucking giant mansions in the sky, going to the same 5 fucking stores, ordering DoorDash and shit like that. It was a fucking nightmare, man. It was significantly less cool. All right, Samuel T. Dover, because billionaires are fucking less cool. They're just lamer than everybody else. Chris K says, I'm born and raised here. My family has been here for multiple generations, and yeah, it's whack now. Completely agree. Salvi says, what do you think of Puerto Rico's political status? So I'm definitely not an expert in that. I know that there is a movement within Puerto Rico for statehood, and I'm sure that there are some people in Puerto Rico who are against that. I think that Puerto Rico should be allowed to be a state if it wants to be a state. I do not think that the American government should stop Puerto Rico from becoming a state. JS says, universal basic income or specific programs for food, medicine, housing, etc. ¿Por qué no los dos? JS, why don't we have pilot programs exploring the idea of universal basic income on the national level? And until we can get there, why don't we have programs that give people access to food and housing and medicine if they currently can't afford it? I think that we are going to need to move to a system of government where universal basic income is a guaranteed right, because there are going to be a lot fewer jobs. going forward, where mechanization and artificial intelligence are taking over various industries. And you don't want to have a nation of unemployed people because that is a recipe for violence and crime. Right. DJ Richard says, "Holy shit, LOL," and people are lazy. Not no, not necessarily DJ Richard Rich. Some people, but most people aren't. Oh, excuse me. Ches says, "Should illegal aliens be deported?" I mean, if people are doing crimes here in America and they're not citizens, then go ahead and deport them. If they have just overstayed their welcome, then definitely deport them. But immigrants are a net positive on our country, and so I think we need to be chiller about it, basically, and we need to give people a pathway to citizenship. Heather PR says, "What is your outlook on women's reproductive health care versus men's?" I mean, with Republicans in charge, women's health is in jeopardy. Right now, it is more in jeopardy in red states than in blue states. But, if the Trump administration and his psychotic acolytes have their way, then we could potentially be looking at nationwide injunctions against any kind of reproductive care for women. They're cutting off access to Planned Parenthood just because they are associated with abortions, and so poor people are not going to be able to get cancer screenings, and women are not going to be able to get their pap smears and shit like that. It's a fucking nightmare, man. Alrighty. Let's see here. Slim Shady says Trump owns the Dems. No, he doesn't. And also ask a question, or you're gonna get booted. Ivermectin says, "Can we also stop sending tax dollars to Israel?" I'm assuming that you meant stop ivermectin. Yeah, I would love it if we could stop sending tax dollars to Israel, but in order to do that, you guys have to vote for politicians who will do that. And there is a lobbying organization called AIPAC that is extremely influential. And if they find out that a politician is going to try to stop sending money to Israel and weapons to Israel, then they are going to use all of their money to try to stop that person from getting elected. And the only thing that we can do as citizens to try to stop them is to vote and to do the work of convincing other people to vote for those people. And when there are super PACs out there painting those politicians as anti-Semitic or whatever, then you have to be out there talking to people and saying, no, they're not. That is just some AIPAC bullshit. Spider-Man says, "Do you think Congress should overturn?" I don't know what that is. Slim Shady says, "You okay with money going to Ukraine?" Yeah, why not? Dave Kramer says, "Why do Democrats want open borders?" They don't, Dave Kramer. There were not open borders during the Biden administration. Veritas Cuetas 1618 says, "Could the blue states successfully secede?" Potentially, but I don't think that they should. Shez says, "AI will create a lot of unemployment. Should we have common income for not working people?" Yeah, give people shit. We are living in a fake, what's the word I'm looking for? Scarcity crisis. There is plenty for everybody. We just have a system right now where a few people have a lot, and they are keeping other people from getting it because they want to have more money and power. Kim Berlina says, "Why do Republicans focus on fringe topics?" Because they can't win on the merits. They can't win on the facts. Yeah, Edgar says, "Do you think Democrats are going to do good in the midterms?" Right now, polling is saying you can go ahead and boot Slim Shady, Rena. He has been warned to ask a question, and he is not. Yeah, so Edgar, the polling right now says that Democrats are poised to win the House, but not the Senate. Now, we can change that, and we should change that. We should be doing work. Let's act like the race is 50-50 right now, and it is only you and me going out there and canvassing and talking to people and doing activism that will win the midterms for Democrats. It's mathematically possible for Democrats to sweep the House and also get 67 seats in the Senate, which is enough to remove Trump from office. Now, is it likely that enough people will do enough work where Democratic senators will win their races in red states? Probably not. That is what pollsters will tell you. They will tell you that it is mathematically extremely unlikely, very likely impossible that people will do that work. But here's the thing that I am posing to everybody on my live stream, is that if I talk to everybody that I know and convince them to be part of this movement, and they talk to everybody that they know and convince them to be part of this movement, then maybe we can fucking 6 degrees of separation our way into electing all Republicans out of office for the fucking bullshit that they have been putting us through for decades. Yes, the Democratic Party might not be perfect. Yes, there are people in the Democratic Party who I think are real pieces of shit. But the party itself is better. The agenda is better. The policies are better. Their history is better. So let's fucking do the work. Let's get rid of worse. Let's all fucking do it, guys. Can we phone tree our way to a better America by talking to people in real life? I think so. So if you believe in this shit, if you agree with me, and if you want things to change for the better, you want to get rid of these fucking Republicans who are letting all this corruption and immoral behavior stand, then fucking do the work, guys. Do the work with me. And if you want to know more information about the work check out my Discord. I got a thread posted about that. Jojo says you can't convince the right. Jojo, that is inaccurate. There are plenty of people who are in the right wing of the country who are convincible, who are soft right wing voters, who are independents, who are non-voters. Yes, it is really difficult to bring people who are far down propagandist rabbit holes back into the light, but it's not impossible. But also, if you don't want to waste your time doing that, then there are other voters that are easier to convince to get on board. Jojo says, I try with no luck. I appreciate that you try it, Jojo, but maybe start with something easier. Start with somebody who's a non-voter and get them to be a voter. Shez says, what's your opinion on gun rights, open and constitutional carry? There's too much gun violence in this country, and a majority of the country believes in common sense gun control legislation to try to curb that gun violence. Now, does that mean forcing everybody who wants to own a gun to have a license? Does that mean forcing them to have insurance? Does that mean mandatory safety classes like every 2 or 4 years or whatever? That all sounds fine to me. Like, I'm cool with that, All right, Polar Express says, how can you guide others to see with blinders on yourself? Well, thank you, Rena. That was an excellent block right there. Free the Bird says, can I join? I normally don't have people join my lives, but stick around, prove to me that you're here in good faith. Maybe you will change my mind. Pan says, if he does, what would happen to people currently going to college? How would that affect students? Are you talking about the birthright citizenship thing, Pan? I'm not really sure where you saw. Oh, Pan, is it possible for him to take away the FAFSA? I'm not 100% sure about that, Pan. Let me dig into that a little bit. Tyro Pillar says, calling in sick tomorrow to do some work at a family gathering. Don't care if they go full left. I just want them to realize they're being lied to. Thank you for doing that, Tyro. I really appreciate you being part of the struggle here, my man. Jeff says, every high school has a Turning Point chapter now. That is terrifying, Jeff, and that is part of the reason why we have to get out there and do the work, because the billionaires are full on trying to capture all of our information and educational spheres of influence. And they are incepting people with propaganda to try to convince them to either not vote or vote for Republicans. It is insidious, it is widespread, and I guarantee you have no idea how bad it is and how long it has been going on for. So we got to do the work. That is the only advantage that we have over the billionaire class, is that there are more of us than there are of them. So do the work, guys. Creed says, so just like at Ivy Leagues. I think that you're trying to say, Creed, that Ivy Leagues are like incepting people with liberal ideas, but that is not happening. That's not real. Arrow Abraham says, can we demand better policies from the left when they are better? And that seems to be enough. Can we demand better policies from the left when they are better? And that seems to be enough. Absolutely, Arrow Abraham, because primaries are still a thing. Like if you don't like the Democrat that was elected, you don't like what they did, then primary them, But here's the thing about primaries is, number one, very low voter turnout. So you really got to do the work to get people aware of what primaries are, because a lot of people have this idea of like, politics is going to be fine if I don't get involved. I'd much rather focus on my own shit. But you got to do the work, man. You got to do the work. And if you don't do the work, or, if you didn't convince enough other people to do the work, then you got to be cool with whatever other candidate wins the primary, because better is better and worse is worse, So yeah, it might suck to vote for the Democrat that you didn't want to win the primary in the general election, but it's still better. It's still better than the alternative. Let's see here. Jeff, I'm building them. I set up my city with Turning Point clubs. So you're building Turning Point clubs. Why would you do that, Jeff? That's a terrible idea. Veritas Cuestas 1618 says, "What if the right keeps cheating in future elections?" So they can't. They can only cheat as much as we allow them to cheat. If we are not demanding that our votes count, if we are not insisting, if we are not doing the work of double checking their work and making sure that we have all the documents that we need and making sure that that we are holding their feet to the fire, then they can't. Like they close down polling locations in Democratic areas, so everybody has to wait 10 hours. That sucks. But wait 10 hours. Go into red districts and convince them that that's fucking bullshit, and try to change some of those votes. You know, change the representatives, make the systems more fair. Like that's the work. The work is all of this. The work is electing Democrats so we can have fair elections going forward. The work is electing Democrats so we can get the money out of politics. The work is all of these things. Alrighty. Jojo says, "Do you think Elon helped Trump win in a nefarious way?" I don't think that. I know that to be the case, Jojo. Like maybe he didn't hack the voting machines and change our votes, but he definitely made millions, potentially more, of illegal campaign finance contributions. He was responsible for sending flyers that said that they were from the Harris campaign that weren't to swing voters, which is blatantly illegal. Smile Because It Happened says, "What are your opinions on gender transitions for minors?" So I understand a person's hesitancy on allowing a child to make something that seems like such a big, massive decision that they could potentially regret at some point in their lives. Like I remember being that age. I made a lot of really bad decisions back then. But here's what the science tells us. The science tells us that the doctors who are doing this responsibly are taking their time, they're going slow, and they are checking in with these kids regularly and constantly seeing if things are going in a better direction or in a worse direction. It's not doctors saying, "You ever think that you're sad because you might be a girl? Let me cut your dick off." It is a much more careful process, and statistically, it is overwhelmingly positive. Like it is saving children's lives being able to go through these transitions. And we're talking about from the level of changing their name and changing the way that they dress all the way up to hormone therapy and potentially surgery, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, so if it's helping children, if it's helping children to not do any kind of self-harm, if it is giving them better and happier lives, and it is being done under the care of respected, credentialed professionals, then absolutely. I want children to have good lives. I want them to be safe. I want them to be happy. And this is doing that for a small percentage of people who have this condition. All right, Smile Because It Happened says, "Can we talk about it?" Can we talk about what? Would you be willing to talk about it? Smile Because It Happened. I mean, I don't know. Can you tell me something that you think I am getting wrong about that in the comments? And then I will consider letting you up. Heather PR says, "It's a massive thing, and we all have to understand that gender affirming care is healthcare." Completely agree with that. Gingy Pep says, "Hormones are tricky, and we don't need judgment." I don't know if that's pro or against, but Jeff says, "I'm stopping left-wing propaganda from being spread." There is no left-wing propaganda, Jeff. So I don't know what you're talking about, man. Also, ask a question, or I'm going to have my moderator boot you. Gigi Pep says, "It's pro." Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. User a bunch of numbers says, "Skips through the truth." Well, if there's something here that I did not read, humor, user a bunch of numbers, then I will then put it again. Comments are kind of slow right now. Jack Quart Coaching said, "Should interest rates be cut?" I don't think so, because the only person that wants them to be cut is Donald Trump, because he thinks that makes it look better for him. But the people that actually take this shit seriously believe that inflation will will start accelerating again if they cut interest rates. Colt 45 says, "What party receives the most campaign donations from corporations?" Colt, I'm not 100% sure about that. I will tell you this, that 75% of all billionaire donations go to Republican Party candidates. That Donald Trump has the most billionaires in his cabinet than any president in history, and that Republicans consistently cut taxes for the billionaire class, cut taxes for their corporations, and cut regulations for their businesses in exchange for all those billions of dollars in dark money contributions that they are getting. It is Republicans that are responsible for money being so much more infused into our elections than in the past. It is Republicans that have been weakening campaign finance laws for decades. So yeah, there's where I stand on that issue. Alrighty, scrolling down to the bottom. Jeff said Kamala Harris had more billionaires donate to her than Donald Trump. That is a lie, Jeff. And if you don't ask a question, I'm gonna boot you. Alrighty. Ches says, should homeless be in administration? Should homeless people be in the government? That's an interesting idea. Ches, is that what you're asking? Smile because it happened says, come on, let me up. It will be worthwhile and fruitful. That comment makes me think that that's not true. Tell me something that you think that I'm getting wrong. Smile, and I'll consider it. Yeah, I mean, I think that we should be, I think the same way that boards of companies should have workers, I think government should reflect the diversity of its citizens. You know, like, let's have the people in government live at the median income of their constituents, you know, and see how that affects their policies. But yeah, you know, there's no law that says that you have to have a home in order to run for political office. So yeah, why the hell not? Jeff says there are multiple news organizations that report that Kamala Harris has more billionaires donating. Jeff, congratulations. You've been warned. You're spreading lies and bullshit. You not asking questions. Also, I fucked your mom, so you're blocked. All right, scrolling down. Dish Down says, will some states have birthright citizenship now while other states won't? I'm not sure. So technically, I'm kind of shooting from the hip here, so bear with me. Technically, every state is still bound by the Constitution. The issue is that there are certain states that might try to revoke your rights as a citizen. And because of the Supreme Court's recent ruling, then you would have to have a class action to fight that state for them to honor your rights as a citizen. That is my, you know, layman's understanding of the Supreme Court ruling that just happened. Smile because it happens says the effectiveness of the treatments is specifically what I disagree with you with what you said. You know, smile because it happens. That does not seem to be the kind of thing that that we could discuss, because I am extremely confident of those numbers. And if you are not getting the same numbers, then I think you should get your news from different sources, because I get my news from a bunch of varied sources. I've had this confirmed by multiple sources. You know, it is like what I'm saying is just accurate. And if you don't think it's accurate, then I think that the problem might be with how you're getting your information. Heather says, I love that you said that, Jarrett. I don't know what I said that you love, Heather, but I appreciate you being here. Thank you, Susie. I appreciate that. Smile because it happens says, well, if you have a valid argument to make, let me up. I've already made my argument. Smile. And here's the thing. Again, if you have different numbers than me, then I'm not going to be able to convince you of shit. You know? So, again, just get your news from different sources, my man, you know? Dish Down says, if federal government goes after second rights removal, won't certain states sue for an injunction to stop it? Potentially. That does sound like an interesting way that blue states could potentially fight this ruling, but there's no consistency in the Supreme Court. Like, they will hand down a judgment that says that presidents named Donald Trump can run for a third term. They will hand down judgments that say, you know, nationwide injunctions are unconstitutional unless they are about the Second Amendment. Like, they are completely scrupulous. They have zero scruples. Smile because it happens says, I also have peer-reviewed sources. I understand why I can't engage in a nuanced discussion. Honestly, Smile, just dip, man, because it's not going to happen. And the more that you pester me about this, the more I just want to block you. So you can ask a different question about a different topic, then I will happily allow you to stay. Nick Sins says, what's your take on Zohran Mamdani? I like Zohran. I'm really glad that he won, but I want to read you this headline that I just saw today. Are you ready, Nick? Nick Season. A billionaire Trump backer is desperate to stop Zohran Mamdani. Billionaire Bill Ackman and his rich friends want anyone, to bring down Zohran Mamdani. Their pitch: to take our money, it won't be much time and energy, and maybe you'll get famous enough to use the campaign as a stepping stone. So the billionaires are not stopping. They are continuing to try to torpedo both his campaign, because, again, he still needs to win in the general election. And after that, they're going to try to campaign his agenda. And so, number one, we need to be aware of it so we won't fall for it. And number two, we need to be part of the coalition of people that is spreading the truth around Zoran, that is assisting him in getting his legislative, his legislative wins. And continuing to build on this win. I was part of a group of citizen voter activists who, when Obama got elected, I was like, all right, sweet, game over. I'm done, man. Country saved, world better. Now I can just fucking do my own thing, man. And boy, oh boy, was I wrong. So it has taught me that when you get your wins, that is not the time to rest. That is the time to step on the gas. Alrighty. Ahmed Khatib says, would everything happening cause a civil war since there's a lot of armed militias pretending to be ICE? I don't think it's going to cause a civil war, but I do think that it's going to cause more panic and political violence, and it is currently being encouraged by the Trump administration. And that is one of a billion reasons why nobody should vote for Republicans, because they are encouraging their supporters to do political violence, and that is fucking psychotic, and it puts everybody in harm's way. The Saint says, left-wing zombies. That's not a question. Ask a question, or I'm going to boot you. Dish Down says, why do billionaires not want to pay anticipated taxes but want to spend so much money to stop Zoran? They have made the calculus that the more they put money into politics, the more they can capture power in a way that makes it either difficult or impossible for people to try to take back in the future. So they believe that they pay dividends. And we have seen in the past that they're right. Like the money that they have put into politics since the Reagan administration has paid, a factor of 10x dividends. Elon Musk's net worth went up something like, I don't know, $5 billion or something because he was in the Trump administration. He was able to kill investigations into his companies through Doge. So yeah, they are right to do it, but they fucking suck. Like it's a shitty thing to do. But as far as like trying to become more powerful and rich, that they're 100% doing the thing to do that. DeSimp says, there's a weird format. Ask me anything about politics, but you're super one-way biased. No, I'm not, DeSimp. If you think I'm biased, then you think that the things I'm saying are incorrect, which makes me think that maybe you're getting your news from inaccurate sources. But if there's something that I said that you think is incorrect, let me know, man. Let's talk about it. I'm open. Let's see here. NGem275 says, Vegas, Grand Canyon, Disneyland, etc. will be empty by the end of the year. Tourism is crashing. I have been seeing reports like that as well, NGem, and that is extremely concerning and is entirely the result of the Trump administration and their stupid fucking policies and their stupid fucking staff, and it is one of a billion reasons why we should vote Republicans out of existence. Like, please join me in the work of voting every Republican out of office, from president down to fucking dog catcher, because they are responsible for this shit. It is them. They did this. Alrighty, Guido says, I appreciate your openness and how you don't tolerate claims without facts. I appreciate you, Guido. Nix says, thank you for your input on Mondani. Thank you. I hope that you are living in New York and that you will do the work to continue to help him, because again, it is not game over. The billionaires are going to start doing really sneaky shit to try to torpedo him. NGem says, local economies that depend on tourism are crashing where I am. I do not find that surprising at all. May Shell says, how worried should I be for our electricity to go off grid? I'm scared. I'm not as concerned about that, May. Yeah, depending on where you live, I'm not so concerned about that. Texas had a real problem with that. I believe that because of that, they officially joined the national grid a couple years ago. I could be wrong about that. Double check that. But yeah, I'm not as concerned about that, Bay. Cecilia Castro says, hi, when are the next voting in Texas? I don't know. Do you live in Texas? Give that a goog. Brooke Tyre says, why isn't domestic violence an automatic felony? I did not know that it wasn't. I guess it should be, because that fucking sucks. You shouldn't do domestic violence. Dan Blackroyd says, I want to see California make a move to the more progressive for their next governor race. I like that too, Dan. Let's make that happen, man. Let's work together on that. And Gem275 says, also MAGA in Western states freaking out about Mike Lee's land sell. Yeah, the Republican Party is trying to sell public lands to private companies. The lands that technically belong to us, national parks and, nature reserves and shit like that, that is ours, that we own a piece of as American citizens. Trump administration wants to sell that to private companies so that those private companies can become rich. and then we won't get to have any nature to go hang out in anymore. That fucking sucks. Michi PGH says Newsom is suing Fox. Did you know? I did hear about that. I have not read into that case at all, though. Ethan Waschlager, good to see you again, says, what's the problem with Texas? Sorry, I wasn't listening closely. I live in Texas. So Texas used to have its own electric grid separate from the national grid, and it has been so thoroughly mismanaged by the Republican Party in Texas that the grid was constantly going down, and people's electricity bills were like thousands and thousands of dollars. And I believe that because of that, they just rejoined the national grid. But I could be wrong about that. I feel like I remember reading about that, but it happened a while ago. Also, the grid was going down. The Texas was suffering from freak weather events because of climate change, and Ted Cruz decided instead of actually helping his state out, he would go and spend a nice weekend in Cancun with his family. Sitter 6666 says maybe they'll put in some bestest greatest golf courses on national park land. Yeah, they're probably just doing a bunch of fucking tree clearing so they could be fucking Mar-a-Lago, Utah and shit like that. Tucker Makes Six is the CEO of Tri-Country Texas stole millions in court. I believe that, though I don't know about it specifically. Brooke Tyre said, should federally recognized tribes be exempt from the draft since they are sovereign? Probably. I mean, we don't really have a draft, so it's kind of a moot point. If I got any Friends fans here, it's kind of a moot point, I think. Quim says, thoughts on our current election system? Any changes you would make? Whoa, 100%, Quim. The election system that we have right now is unfair to Democratic candidates. It is harder for Democrats to win because of both money in politics and the specifics of electoral systems. For example, in Republican-led states, they are closing down polling locations in Democratic areas so that if you live in a blue area, they're making it harder for you to vote. Your line is like 10 hours long, whereas they have like 5 different districts in the red parts where you can vote and you'll have to wait like 5 seconds. Additionally, voter ID laws in red states, and then they close down DMVs in blue areas. So it's hard for people to get the IDs that they need to be able to vote in elections. Gerrymandering, the Electoral College, the Senate map, all give Republicans massive advantages in elections. Unfair advantages. I think anybody would be, would be justified in making that argument. Additionally, because of the Republicans' successful effort to weaken and destroy certain election campaign finance laws, they now have access to limitless dark money political contributions. So they are able to completely capture all of our information environments with overt ads and insidious propaganda to assist them in getting elected. And even if Democrats wanted to play that kind of dirty pool, they don't have access to the same cash reserves as Republicans do. So money out of politics, potentially get rid of the Senate, and gerrymandering, and get rid of the Electoral College, just as a start. May Shell says, when do you think they will impeach him? If Democrats win the House, they will impeach him. If they don't, they won't. Republicans are never going to, because they are either scared of Trump, they are scared of political violence, they are scared of getting primaried, or they are on board with all of the wildly illegal, corrupt, unconstitutional shit that he is doing. They are down with the fascism. They are down with the dictator agenda. And that doesn't matter where they fall down on that line. If they're too fucking scared to do their job, or if they're too fucking in the bag and too fucking corrupt themselves to do their job, then they don't deserve to fucking have that job. So it should be the goal of everybody in America to elect the Republican Party out of existence, to elect Democrats to all of those seats, to do the work of getting people to vote that way, and convincing people to vote that way, and convincing them to convince other people to vote that way. And then they convince other people, and then those people convince other people, and then we fucking phone tree 6 degrees of separation our way into having a country that actually fucking represents its citizens. Alrighty, let's see here. Banda Boss, congratulations on getting 100% in your exam. Let's see here. User a bunch of numbers says Dems are mentally ill. That's not a question. That is inaccurate, user. If you don't ask a question, you're all right. Rena's on top of it. You saw what was coming down the pike, Rena. You knew what was up. Patrick says, is that why the Democratic Party is at 20% approval rating? The Democratic Party has that 20% approval rating for a bunch of different reasons, Patrick, and it is, what's the word I'm looking for? It is an eclectic cornucopia of reasons. I think the Democratic Party has been the victim of a decades-long, potentially trillion-dollar smear campaign that started in the 90s, potentially before then. If you read the book Dark Money by Jane Mayer, she goes into the fact that this is a literal conspiracy by the richest people on the planet to try to destroy the government so that they can pay no taxes and they can make us all slurp up their fucking chemical runoff from their factories and we all get cancer and die. I think that the Democratic Party has been wounded by all of this propaganda and all of this unfair coverage in a way that has made them very skittish. I heard today somebody described it on a podcast saying that the Democrats are so scared of losing that they'll never win again. And I think that that is 100% accurate. They're so obsessed with making the safe decision that they never actually fucking do anything. I think that it is intimately related to the conclusion of Ezra Klein's book, Abundance, which, full disclosure, I have not read yet. I have only listened to him talk about it in interviews. But that is my, bird's eye view take on that. But yeah, propaganda, misinformation, a feckless leadership that is that way because they're the victims of domestic abuse, essentially. Metaphorically, the American media system has been beating up Democrats for so long that now they're fucking scared to do anything, and now they're scared to fucking say anything, and now they have to focus group every word that comes out of their mouth 1,000 times. It's the reason why they all sound like fucking robots, is because no matter what they say, there's somebody out there, either in Fox News land or the fucking conservative side of the New York Times, who's going to jumble it up and spit it out as something that was not the original intention. And so now Democrats are like, well, we have to make sure that everything we say is perfect and appeals to every single fucking human being. And now they all sound like fucking robots, But not only is there a progressive wing of the Democratic Party that is way better than the gerontocracy wing, the non-meritocracy wing, the centrist wing of the Democratic Party, but also, even if the party was just gerontocracy centrists, even if it was just Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's, that's still better than the Republican Party by like a fucking mile. It's better. If they just stopped doing bad things, it would be better. I want a progressive Democratic Party because in addition to not doing bad things, they will also do good things. Like, I like the platform. But even if it's just stopping the fucking shit that's going on right now, that's worth it to me, Kimberlina says, how does universal health care work? Would there still be insurance? No, Kimberlina. If you want to go to the doctor, you go to the doctor. That is how that would work. It would make things cheaper and just about 1 billion times simpler and less of a fucking headache and a heartache, and people would not die of preventable illnesses going forward. Kimberlina, thank you for your question. Ethan Walschlager says, I like both parties for different things. What do you like about the Republican Party, Ethan? I find that to be a really confusing comment for one of my regulars. Like, because like all the things that I've told you about the Republican Party. Like, how can you still think that way, but man, my guy? May Shell says, writing your congressperson legislation, all your officials in office. Writing your congressperson's legislation, all your officials in office. I'm not really sure what you mean by that, May Shell. Let's see here. Somebody just keeps on doing this emoji and some poop and the what he calls it, and it looks like Rena's on top of it. Alrighty. Yeah, Ethan, fucking get at me, man. You're a regular, man. You have earned my trust. Let's talk about it. Tucker makes 6 says, how about that hogwash that another jet has fallen off into the ocean? We aren't stupid. I mean, that's what happens when you put a fucking inexperienced alcoholic named Pete Hegseth in charge of the fucking military. Fucking planes fall into the ocean off of aircraft carriers. Ethan Walschlager says, I like the abortion policies because of my religion. Ethan, I have some information that I would love to drop into your noodle about the difference between Republican abortion policy and Democratic abortion policy. Are you open to hearing this information? Give me a yay or a nay in the comments. Kimberlina, I think it was just 2. I don't believe that a new one, but maybe there was another one. I don't know. Let's see here. N. Monroe says Israel or Palestine. I am for the citizens of both of those countries, and I am against the governing bodies of both of those countries. I am against Netanyahu. I am against Hamas. All right, Ethan. All right, so here's my spiel about abortion. If you do not like abortion because of your religion, and you want to stop it entirely, the first thing I would say about that is that you live in a country with a bunch of people who don't feel that way. So how do you want to live in that country? Do you want to force people to not do that? Here's the reason why I don't think that you should force people to do that. Aside from the fact that Jesus teaches us, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Is that making abortion illegal doesn't actually reduce the numbers of abortion. We have a lot of data on this. We know from previous abortion bans. We know from the red states where abortion is currently illegal. We know that abortion bans don't actually decrease or stop the number of abortions. The only thing it does is it makes pregnancy more dangerous for women. Because women who are desperate to get abortions will still get illegal, unsafe abortions. And women who are suffering from pregnancy complications that require abortions in order to save their lives or save their fertility so they can have children going forward, women that want children, that are trying to have children, those women are dying because of that. There have been at least 4 women that have died, and potentially more, that have died because of these abortion bans. Women who wanted to have kids. There are children right now who have lost their mothers because of that. Now, if you want to join me in stopping abortion from happening or making it less, regular of a thing, the number one thing that we can do is teaching kids about sex so that they don't accidentally get pregnant. Giving people access to contraception, like condoms and the pill and Plan B and stuff like that, and making it more financially viable for people to have kids, with subsidized childcare, family planning, raising the minimum wage, maternity leave, paternity leave. All of these things actually reduce the number of abortions because you have people not getting accidentally pregnant, and you have people that get pregnant that are now like, oh, I can afford to have a kid, so I'm gonna. I think it is really important, Ethan, to consider the fact that all of those policies you just told you about, the Republican Party has been fighting against for decades. And yet they say they want to stop abortion. What my conclusion, based on that evidence, is that the Republican Party doesn't actually want to stop abortion. What they want to do is increase the number of accidental pregnancies and then force women to have those babies because it makes the working class more desperate. And when the working class is more desperate, then they don't have time and energy to try to make their lives better. They don't have the time and energy to try to take power away from the powerful and try to do something about income inequality or organize or form unions or go to college or vote. They don't have time to find a better job because they're so busy working 3 jobs at shitty pay. When we're desperate, they can force us to do demeaning, dangerous jobs. When an employer decides they want to sexually harass their employee, they don't have time to go talk to a lawyer. They don't have time to go find a new job. They're desperate. They're like, I gotta let this guy do this thing to me. That is what they want. That is what the Republicans want because that's what the billionaires want. And they're working together. So, yeah, let me know what you think about all that. I don't know if you said I was in the middle of my shit there, so I didn't really see. Oh, yeah, so you haven't said anything since yeah, of course. So let me know what you thought about that, my man. Ethan, oh, there you are. I could agree with that, but then what about deportation? Oh, okay. So then did you also say anything about deportation? Like you like the Republicans on deportation? And I like the idea of deportation, but it needs to be managed better. Okay, so Ethan, about deportation. This one's a little bit more complicated, but the short version is this. The Republican Party is, again, not trying to solve this problem. They are just trying to be as shitty about it as humanly possible, They only believe in enforcement. They don't want, and this is for like every problem, like they don't want to actually solve crime. They just want to punish people who do crimes more than Democrats want to punish people who do crimes, because what actually stops crime is making sure that we don't have people living in poverty who feel like they have to do crimes in order to fucking survive, And Republicans fight against that because they want crime, because then they can increase police funding and create a fucking, police dictatorship, police state dictatorship, The same shit goes for, the border. Like they don't really give a shit about stopping illegal immigration. If they did, then they would pay for more immigration judges and asylum judges. All they want to do is enforcement. All they want to do is deport people. And, I think that this is just me, like if you want to have like a nuanced discussion about what the Democrats' platform should be regarding illegal immigration or a pathway to citizenship, we can have that. But let's really talk about what the Republicans are doing right now, separating children from their families, children who have diseases like cancer who are getting deported or whose parents are getting deported. Now they don't have access. Now they're going to fucking die because of that. Shipping people who are legal residents, who have legal residency in America, not even to their home fucking country, but fucking concentration camps in El Salvador and South Sudan and Libya. Like, is there any justification for that? Do you think that a party that would do that really gives a shit about solving that problem? Do you think that a party that would do that really cares about solving the thing that you think makes immigration necessary? Like if you think we need deportations because immigrants are raising the cost of living or decreasing job pay and stuff like that. Do you think that a party that is deporting people who are not criminals, who are here legally, and are just are paying dictators to take those people and house them in fucking concentration camp? Like, do you really think that party gives a shit about solving that problem for you, my man? I know I'm kind of like, bobbing and weaving here a little bit just because the immigration thing is such a fucking quagmire, I just think that this party has lost all credibility. Like they worked on a bill with the Democratic Party on trying to shore up more border security. And it was largely a giveaway to the Republican Party. This happened during the Biden administration. There were some things in there for the Democrats, like they got more immigration judges, they got more asylum judges. That's what we want. We want a pathway to citizenship. We want people to not have to wait 10 years to finally have their immigration hearing. And then the Republican Party killed it because Trump wanted to run on that as an issue in the election. To me, that speaks to the character of the party and that party's politicians, that they don't really give a shit about this issue, that they're not really trying to solve it. To me, the Republican Party has zero credibility on this issue. And however tough they might talk, however many people they might deport illegally, immorally, unconstitutionally, to me, I can't trust them on this issue, among many other issues, of course. Ethan, let me know what you think about all that, my man. All right. Ethan Walschlager says, I think that we need to deport, but a different way. Okay. Are you open to the idea that Democrats do that as well? Like Democrats, the right likes to call Obama the deporter in chief as a way of saying, like, you guys are hypocrites about this because you're angry at Trump doing deportations, but Obama did so many deportations and Biden did so many deportations. So you're telling me, Ethan, and tell me if I'm being a little too, snarky here. You're telling me that the reason why you like the Republican Party is because of their stance on abortion and immigration. And meanwhile, it seems like the things that you like about those things, like you want them to be fewer abortions and you want deportations to be done, but you want them to be done in a better way. It seems like the Democratic Party is doing that, man. Are you with me on this, my guy? Like, am I, are you smelling what I'm cooking here? Am I putting the secret sauce together? Is that working for you, my man? Alrighty. Oh, excellent, Ethan. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being open to this, my guy. And listen, I'm not expecting you to be an AOC progressive just because I yelled at you for 5 minutes, but just so long as you're open to that idea, I'm happy, and I'm really glad to have you as a regular on these live streams. Woo boy. Oh boy. Period says, can I borrow $5? No, you cannot. All right, everybody. So I'm going to start winding things down. Ethan, you really just fucking made my whole week, man. That was one of my favorite exchanges that I've had on the show in a long time. I want to thank everybody for your comments and for your likes and your shares and your gifts. And I want to thank my moderator, Rena. You're doing the fucking Lord's work on here. If there was any questions that you guys have that I was not able to get to on this live stream, or you think of things later that you would like my take on, or that you want me to answer, or Ethan, if you want to get into this stuff in more detail, my DMs are open. You can email me through my website, and also I have a Discord. My Discord, I don't spend a ton of time on there, but there are threads for like general discussion and whatnot. The real value of the Discord server, I think, is I have a thread posted that is called The Work, where if you are like me and you believe in the in the crusade of unelecting every Republican from office because of all this fucking shit that they're putting us through, because of all the evil and unconstitutional and corrupt shit that they're currently doing right now, and being asleep at the wheel with not doing their fucking jobs, then that's The Work, guys. That is where The Work is listed. And if you want to know what The Work is, that's where you go to the Discord server, you look up the thread The Work, and there's a bunch of things that you can do there, and you can do as much or as little as you like. And there's also great recommendations on the Discord as well for books or podcasts that you might want to check out. My normal streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. My schedule can be found for both live streaming and stand-up comedy on my website, jaredberenstein.com. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I have a Patreon that you can join. I got 4 patrons. They're the best, but they're lonely. They could use some friends. You can also buy things from my store. I got a store on my website, jaredberenstein.com. That's also where you can find the Patreon. And, of course, you can send gifts and subscribe to the various channels that I am streaming on. But yeah, just thank you guys for being here. Thank you for all the support already. Let's all do the work. The more people that do the work, the more effective the work is, the less work that we all have to do individually. Yeah, all right, let me see if I got any final questions here before I get out of here. Noah's Secret says, do you support ICE? No, I do not. Noah's Secret. ICE is a rogue agency acting illegally, unconstitutionally, and immorally. They're deporting citizens, veterans, Republicans, Democrats, legal residents. It is not just hardened criminals. They're hiding their face like the fucking Gestapo. They are, yeah, I can't say enough negative things about ICE. Pan says, could you take away my birth control? There are mechanisms by which Republicans could try to take away your birth control, 100%. And that is part of the agenda. It might not be front and center. They might try to hide it. But if you read Project 2025, there is some real fucking Handmaid's Tale, Gilead shit in there that you should be concerned about. Noah's Secret says, I think their job is good, but they are not doing it right. I think not doing it right is a bit of an understatement, my man. Like Chris Murphy, during a Senate hearing with Kristi Noem, basically outlined all the ways in which ICE is acting illegally, unethically, unconstitutionally, immorally, etc. And I don't think that an agency can make those kinds of mistakes and do that level of wrong. And my criticism of them just be, well, they're just not doing their job correctly. Like they're rotten to the fucking core, my guy. Like it is just real bad. I think they need to be disbanded. We do not need them to be doing what they are doing. If we want to make sure that we got like good, solid deportation numbers, like that can be done better and more smart just with border enforcement, and local law enforcement. Celia Castro says, do you think Republicans should worry more about Israel and Iran than immigrants in the U.S.? I mean, I don't think that people should be worried about immigrants because immigrants are a net positive, even if they're here illegally, even if they're undocumented, if they are not, committing crimes, which most of them don't. They commit crimes at lower rates than natural citizens. Then fucking let them stay. Let's work on a way where they can become citizens because they are valuable members of our country. So yeah. But do I think that they should also be worried about Israel and Iran? I mean, we were all a little bit worried about things spiraling out of control in the Middle East. So yeah, I definitely think that things like global tension and violent conflicts between sovereign nations is more of a concern than immigration. I think 100%. All right, Mercy 870 says, how do you feel about the new laws allowing animals to conceal carry firearms? Animals? What, you mean like dogs and horses can now have concealed carry? Lisa Salas says, there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. I agree with that. Let's see here. Yes, squirrels too. You know, I don't love guns, but um, I will fight for a capybara's right to have a shotgun. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. I will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have an excellent weekend. Take care of yourselves. Take care of other people. Do your self work. That's part of the work. And yeah, but do the work, guys. That is the only way that we get out of this, is if we all do the work. Have a great weekend, and I will see you guys next week on Monday. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.